Let's get a quick take on the historic U.S. visit of Pope Francis and his speech to Congress that he just made just yesterday. Patty Calhoun of Westword, what have you thought of the big papal visit?
Well, it's a good reminder of just how powerful religion is still around the world. And even more stunning, I thought, than the congressional speech was the speech he gave in New York beforehand, that he started out talking about in sympathy with the tourists who had been killed at the Hajj, you know, the 700 pioneers going to Mecca, and that he brought that up and he was embracing all religions. Really stunning visuals from across the country.
Craig Silverman, attorney with Silverman and Olivas, also a radio talk show host on KNUS. Impressed or not impressed from some of the comments we've heard from the Pope?
I have not been overly impressed with his trip to Cuba or to America. I thought it was a great PR show for President Obama, but it didn't do much for freedom in Cuba. Wouldn't even meet with the dissidents. And then his speech yesterday before Congress, my goodness, that was timid and a little bit feeble. He wouldn't talk about the plight of Christians in the Middle East, begging America to get involved and help rescue fellow Christians. Didn't talk about abortion directly, pulled all his punches. Soft, gentle. He's a simple, kind-hearted man, best I can tell, but I don't think he's giving the Islamic State much to worry about.
Penfield Tate, attorney now with QTAC Rock. Thank you very much for joining us. Also a longtime state lawmaker. What have you made from the comments? And while we have Craig's point of view, we've heard from a lot of folks that it's been hard to pin down the Pope on any particular political persuasion, whether it's Republican or Democrat. People have something to find either in support or to argue about. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think at first blush, both Patty and Craig are right. I mean, this is a fellow it's been great theater, it's been great show. He has been provocative. He has said some things prior to this trip that have sort of, I think, worried some, for lack of a better term, establishment Catholics who are used to the traditional dogma. But I think he was very measured in his remarks in front of Congress. I think he was going out of his way not to be political in that context, which seems ironic. I mean, he's there before a joint session of the U.S. Congress, and he's being apolitical. But what I think we'll see is that some of his later pronouncements will sort of put that visit in context. I think his visiting Cuba before coming to the U.S. was a clear indication that he's sort of taking a different look at the world than his predecessors. He's been, I think, much more, liberal's not the good word, maybe more expansive in his thinking in terms of how the church ought to relate to the broader world. And I think really this trip was just sort of a hint of things to come. He went to Cuba, he came to the U.S., he's doing these things to lay the groundwork for some other work he may do. I mean, he's turning the Vatican inside out he's been very aggressive politically with firing some of the established guard there. He's overturning the operation of the Vatican Bank. So he's been a revolutionary in his own quiet way, but I don't think he'll be understated for much longer.
Natasha Gardner, senior editor of 5280 magazine. Whether folks agree or disagree with Pope Francis, he seems to be getting a lot of conversation going. What do you think?
A lot of conversation. Most interestingly, a lot of conversation outside of the Roman Catholic faith. There's a lot of people who maybe have never set foot in a Catholic church who are paying attention to what he's saying, are interested in what he's saying. And it's important as we have those discussions to remember he is a religious leader, not a political leader. So his purpose and sort of what he's promoting is a bit different. What I think is most compelling about him, separate issues aside, abortion, gay rights, gay marriage, things like that, there's a lot of controversy. But he comes back to, again and again, a focus on compassion and helping others. That's really his important stance, which is interesting because it's almost like back to basics. You know, this is not a new thought. This is a very old thought in the church. And the fact that he's bringing that out and that message is still so relevant today says something that speaks beyond religious lines. If you're not religious, it's something that you can listen to and say, yeah, that's something I need to put into my life. So that message, if that's what we get out of his visit to the United States, I think is a good one.
And also putting his money where his mouth is, visiting a homeless shelter in New York. That's not just lip service. It's a good point.